by taking a rewind to our last lesson here, dealing with the inequalities, but also playing with the fractions one more time. Because as I've strolled around, I have seen some issues coming up with this. So one thing to take note of before we get going too far here, and that's understanding before I ever start any of these inequality problems, knowing what the graph should look like, more than likely is going to look like. So, quick thing to put here at the top. Okay, so again, reminding ourselves with the ands, they normally are just two dots that kind of get connected together, whereas our ors typically go out from each other. That way, if yours ends up looking different at the end, you can take a moment and go, okay, now wait a minute. Is this really this way? Or should I be looking at it a little bit differently? So, when you see the compound inequalities, typically those are going to be looking like the and statements do. And I do apologize up front. I wish I would have moved my graphs down further and put the room in here. So I'm actually going to rewrite this so that I have a little more room to work with. And just like any equation or any inequality that we have done so far, my goal, one of the reasons that we can still use the color that you hopefully picked up, is to get that variable alone. And it's still the same opposites that we've been dealing with forever. And actually, I keep finding room up here at the top, so I'm going to keep using it. Okay, adding and subtracting, opposites. Here I'm adding. Okay. When you minus, though, this time, since there's two of these sets of arrows, there's actually 1, 2, 3 parts of this compound inequality. So each one of the parts, I've subtracted it in the middle, but I also have to subtract it here, and I also have to subtract it here. That's the only time we have to do it that many times. So those go away. 7 minus 4 is 3, and this is where we just pay the attention to detail. You make sure you keep the arrow going the same way. You make sure that if there's a line under, you keep it. And we're just going to keep copying the pieces that we have until we get the n alone in the middle. Once we do, and knowing that it's an and, I hope you see at this point, we go to the 3. Hey, is my dot on the 3 going to be open or closed? Closed, because of the line underneath it. So close that. Then we'll go to 4. Same thing, line underneath is going to be closed. And we're shading in between. Because again, because n is greater than or equal to 3, greater than the arrow is going to the right, so we'd be going this way. N is less than or equal to 4, because again, the arrow is pointing at n. Less than is left, and they would kind of form or crash in the middle. And again, if it's been a little while, that's why we've still got our notes. And again, I've still got mine. You can always copy. They're online too. Having this stuff on there will be of great benefit when we get to the next quiz, which is going to be early next week. So just something to consider. So I'm going to jump one. I'm going to move a little bit on this one. I'm going to come down to here. Because again, they're both and. So I know kind of ahead what this should look like. Just recopy here for a sec, so I got a little room. Same concept. Get the color going on what you're trying to get alone. And then opposite whatever is there. So just like we saw up here. The opposite of plus is minus. Do not be afraid to use a calculator. It is not a terrible thing. If I have $1 and I go and spend $2, I'm $1 in the hole. So I'm like, okay, my first number here is at -1. Okay, right here. Again, the line underneath. So that one's going to be our equal to. Arrow is eating the V. That is greater than, and greater than is where the numbers get bigger. I'm just going to make a small arrow there, just in case I see something later I need to change. But, okay, so far so good. And then I do the same thing over here on this one. The opposite of minus is to add. We get that out of there. And I get my V by itself. So once I do, I go to the number that I solved for. Man, we have a lot of more equal to's right now. So we get that filled in. And again, if the arrow points at V, V, you are less than I am. Less than goes left. And I find out, here come the arrows at each other. It's just all the values in between, just like we would expect from an AND statement. And that one's set. And so, as we do these, it's like anything else. The more you see them, the easier they will get. I get to number 2. Okay, now it's OR in the middle. So I kind of have this picture in my brain. This is what this should look like when I get to the end. So I go, ooh, fraction. Okay. So this is multiply and divide. So the opposite of dividing is to multiply. Okay, both sides. Oh, I didn't even rewrite it this time. Over here, all that cancels is the divide and the multiply by 10. They go bye-bye. 1 times 10 is 10. And finally, we go to 10. There's my circle. It stays open because it's just greater than. Again, the arrow is eating x, and when we eat things, we get greater. Greater than goes to the right. Okay, just reinforcing things that we saw last time we met. Then I go to the second one. I'm like, okay, there's my x. That's a positive 9 that I'm adding to it. I'm going to do the opposite. Again, keep your variable in the same spot. Keep your arrow in the same spot. 17 minus 9 is 8. That means my dot is going on 8, a closed dot. because we've got that or equal to. And again, when the arrow is pointing at x, that is less than and less than goes left, and my graph looks like what it should. So I feel pretty good that I did that one correctly. So the word in the middle can give me a clue. The arrows give me a clue. We've got all these clues there, but again, between our practice ones here and the notes from last time, hopefully that gets us on a little bit better of a ground. However, when we get to the fractions, oh dear, I'm just looking to see what we got here. Okay, if you only have one number, that is the number you're going to multiply by. We're going to multiply everything, even this one that is not a fraction. Everything gets some of the distributing. Now, we have to make sure that when we go to the calculator, if we need some help, 2 times 1, I think we got that under control. If we need help on some of the other parts, though, and if you just jumped into the calculator and you're in this, or you're in this chart, and you're like, Hardy, what the heck? To get out of there, you can just hit second in the mode button right next to it. You can quit that way and get out of there. But when I'm doing the multiplying with fractions, so 2 times, -5/2, parentheses whenever you're going to do a fraction. And then again, the negative is this one down by enter, the little one, not the big one over here, just this little guy. So -5 divided by, that's my fraction button. And make sure that your variable stays with you. And so for each of those, again, watch for signs. No N on that one. This one has an N. So my whole job there was just to say, see ya, to all the fractions. But now I got to start looking for some of the details again, and this is where we've had some struggles. If your terms you're putting together are on the same side of the equals, the ends are, I cannot do +5 +5, that will not work. -3 -3, no. They're on the same side. -5 + 3. So, -2n. This doesn't have an n. I cannot combine it with anything else. My equals stays in the same place. And now that I have all my n's together, now I'm looking for my opposites to do things. My opposite of -3. And then my last thing to be careful of, okay, I'm not minusing 2 to n. This isn't n minus 2, it's -2 times n. And my opposite of multiply is to divide. And get to my answer. Okay, and I want to get you started on number 8 because there is one small difference. When I get to number 8 and I'm looking at all of those denominators, I do not have to multiply all of them, just the ones that are different from each other. Like the 3 repeats, I don't have to do 3 again. The 2 repeats, I don't have to do 2 again. You could, you'll still get the right answer even if you multiplied all of them together. But again, 3 times 2 is 6. That's what you're working on getting all the way through here. All fractions in parentheses. If there's negatives, don't forget them. Keep that variable. Kind of important. No variable on that one. And one last time. Again, and this has got a V. You cannot put the V in the calculator or any variable, but, well, that's interesting. Y and V, how did that happen? I'm glad we're doing this one together. That's not supposed to be happening. Or did I just see that? Oh, I thought that was Y, didn't I? That was me. That's V. There is not craziness going on here. That's just the teacher being crazy. And from there, you've got the exact same situation that you did in 7, combining your like terms and working through those. Okay. I think, let's see if my thinking is correct. Oh, my thinking is correct. One last review issue on the back, and then I will kind of let you play a little, and I will be working my way around as well. Okay, solve each inequality and graph its solution. Reminder, each one of these is going to have 2 inequalities, just like before when we had 2 absolute value equations. So we've always got to remember to go back to some of these things when we're trying to get ourselves going. So for instance, here's how this is going to work. First one, just like when we did the absolute value equations. First time, copy everything you see except the bars. Okay, so x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 4. Want to get my x by itself. Do the opposite of minus 3 until that's solved. And now it's just like what we were doing on the inequalities on the front. I go to my number. I see that it's got a line underneath it. So there's the or equal to part. And the arrow is eating x. It is getting greater or larger. And we get greater or larger going to the right. But then for my second one, again, copy everything you see in the bars. Do not change anything. Here come the changes. We flip the arrow. We change the sign of the answer. Okay? Both of those things have to be done. Otherwise, it's not going to work right. And so once I flip the arrow and I change the sign, same idea. Still trying to get this minus 3 out of here, just like we did on this one. We'll get get that out of there. Again, keep your arrow. Add those up. I go to -1. There's my circle. Since the line's underneath, that circle is closed. And the arrow is pointing at x, which again is less than. X, you are less than me, and I am -1. Okay, so these are going to look like my and ors. Some of them are going to be going apart like this. Some of them are going to be coming together. Are you going to do one more? I am. I am. So let's say we do 11. You're like, okay. Let's see here. Literally just copy it the first time. Do not change anything. Just lose the bars. Opposite of divide by 7 is to multiply. We're solved already, just that one step. So again, I go to 7. There is no line underneath this time, so it's going to be open. Arrow is pointing at my variable, a, you are less than 7. So my arrow would be going left. Same thing rolling here, except again, you flip the arrow, and before that 7 was there, you change the sign of what was there originally. Okay, flip arrow, change sign. Other than that, the steps are going to be the same. So I look, I'm like, okay, we're open circle again. Arrow is eating a, oh, it's getting bigger. It's getting greater than. My arrows are just going to connect in the middle. So that's what we're on the lookout for with these. So today I would say try to finish off these others. If you get some extra time or you're still working on a retake or a makeup, let me know. We'll try and get that set for you.